Maybe this is just another epoxy video, or maybe it's not. Sometimes a piece of wood tells you exactly what it wants to become, and then sometimes it lies to you. So I thought this slab was perfect. And in the end, it is a beautiful slab. But I realized once I pulled the bark off of this section there, it was going to be too low to show any wood in that section through the epoxy. So I had a decision to make. Either throw away some of the prettiest wood there, or figure out a way to cut it back and make it work. Which is funny because that's how life works sometimes too. Sometimes the problem becomes the best part, and just figuring out a solution how to make things work. And I've certainly seen enough epoxy videos online to know that there's basically two kinds. The first kind is, wow, that's beautiful. The second kind is, why does it look like someone spilled 5 gallons of windshield washer fluid in a perfectly good slab? So I'm going to do my best to stay in the first category, if possible. So basically, this is where the story begins. When the bark came off, just as I thought, it was going to be too small to be able to be shown through the epoxy. And then when I cut the table to length, I would basically be cutting off some of the prettiest wood at the end. So I had to figure out a way to bring that wood back closer. Otherwise, if I just cut it off and left it at length, it was just going to disappear into a sea of resin. And I didn't really want that look. So what I decided to do is cut the ends off, reshape both sections, and attach them back. If you've ever seen the Japanese, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, kintsugi, they repair broken pottery with gold. The crack isn't hidden, it's really celebrated. So maybe instead of hiding the repair, we make it intentional. Maybe bow ties. Either way, one of the first things I needed to get done after cutting it in half is going ahead and getting it flattened down on the CNC. And we had some issues here in the beginning of the shop of my dust collection not working, so that's why you see dust everywhere. Plus, I had to get the bark completely off of each section. Luckily, the two pieces that I cut off of each end were small enough to fit in my jointer and in my planer, so I was able to joint those and then get them to the same thickness as I had flattened the slab to. Luckily, I had cut everything to the length that I thought was going to work to give me the correct table size in the end. You know, measure twice, cut once. Or is it measure once, cut twice? Or measure 0 times. Well, that's how you accidentally build a coffee table instead of a dining table. But seriously, you know, everybody talks about success. Nobody really talks about the recovery side. Recovery is where most of the interesting stories come from. I've learned a lot more from mistakes than I ever learned from projects that went perfectly. And woodworking is pretty forgiving. Most mistakes can be fixed very easily or become design features. We got all that done. Probably the most important thing is it is level. I've checked it both directions and diagonally. It is completely level. And we want to make sure it's level because we don't want our epoxy running more than one side or the other. I mean, if it's a little off, you can make do, but you end up using more epoxy than you need. And it will just go. If epoxy could find a hole, it will. It's basically like the toddler of woodworking, I do believe. It will get into anything and try its best to ruin everything, if you let it. So, good deal. All right, again, keep your offcuts. All right, looks like we got everything ready. This is a little heavy, so it's gonna take me a minute to get it into the room. But here we go. All right, we got it in here. So, little mishap there. I'm not even gonna get into that. It's when I had the camera off. I actually dropped the slab. And it wound up hitting a paint can. Anyway, got white paint on top of the slab. It's not gonna matter. I wiped it off. It's not soaking into it, so it's gonna be surfaced off anyway. Just a pain. This is probably the most relaxing part, assuming you mixed enough epoxy, your mold is level, and it doesn't leak, and Mercury isn't in retrograde. Otherwise, it's panicked. I've always liked epoxy because you can't rush it. Really, in a world where everything happens instantly, epoxy still looks at you and says, you're going to wait. And honestly, that's probably good advice for most of us to take most of the time. All right, so now that we got that calculated, I'm gonna give my buddy Alan at Super Clear a call. He's liable to have a fit when he hears how much epoxy I need for this table.
Hello?
Hey buddy, it's Greg. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Greg? How you doing?
Oh, working on this huge epoxy table. I figured I'd give you a holler and see if I can get you to send me some product.
Okay. What kind of volume are you looking at?
Looking at about 30 gallons.
Dude.
Exactly.
What do you got going on?
I got a big dining room table that I'm making for a client, and it's going to be pretty awesome. Got some cool tricks and some really interesting stuff to do. So yeah, if you can hook me up with it, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, we got you. You know, we always got you, man.
All right, thanks, Alan. I appreciate it, brother.
Hey, no problem, dude.
All right, bye.
Have a great one, Greg.
All right, well, the folks over at Super Clear came through as always. Thank you very much. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do some of this and pass those savings on to my clients. So we're gonna go ahead and mix up probably a couple of kits. Let me explain this a little bit. So this is a pretty wide table and there's gonna be quite a bit of epoxy in the middle. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. What I don't wanna do, and you can, I just prefer not to, I don't wanna really put threaded inserts directly into epoxy by itself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour probably about a 1/4 inch layer, and then I'm going to place some hardwood, it's gonna be walnut also, in the middle. You're never gonna see it, but it's going to allow me from the bottom to drill and put the threaded inserts into actual hardwood that's encased in the epoxy. And of course, you'll never see it. It's gonna be solid black, but it makes me feel better and it's more secure in my opinion. But all right, let's get to mixing. All right, we get the second one mixed up. Let's pour it in. Okay, so I've got this glued up. This is a little panel I'm gonna put, like I said, in the middle of the table. So I'll have something to screw to. I'm gonna have to shape this a little bit to get it in there because obviously there's live edge. So, all right, we're gonna get this out of clamps and start on that. One thing I wanted to do is get some clamps on these and put some wood across it. With the little bit that I've poured so far, it's not really gonna float up. However, with the amount that I am pouring here on out, it really could. It probably still wouldn't because of the amount that I poured in the beginning, and it's already almost cured. It's still kind of pretty tacky, but still better safe than sorry, right? So now let's mix some epoxy. So I'm using Super Clear's liquid glass, and one of the good things I love about it is I can actually pour up to 4 inches without any issues in one pour. I'm pouring pretty deep here. It's not 4 inches, but it's pretty deep. Probably 2.5 inches, maybe 2 3/4, something like that. I'm also going to be using Eye Candy Pigments pigment paste. It seems to work really well, in my opinion, for a really, really solid opaque color. And that's really what I'm going for here, is just a completely solid black. And this always does a really, really good job. Let's pour. I'm going to obviously pour over the top of this. Nice and dark black, so exactly what we wanted. The bottom layer is still very tacky, so that's going to give us a good chemical bond. Most of the bottom layer is honestly going to be removed whenever I do the flattening. That's why I kind of poured it like I did. So it will kind of expose a little bit of that walnut on the bottom. You know, when you're doing a project and you kind of get towards the middle, you just have a hard time sometimes imagining that it could ever possibly look like furniture. It just looks like a mess. But that's life too. When you're in the middle, you don't get to see the finished product. You just got to keep showing up, keep sanding, keep fixing, and eventually one day people only see the finished table. They don't see all the mistakes you had to encounter along the way or anything you had to fix. I was still having the dust collection issue here. It's hooked up to that jet, not the Oneida, and it just wasn't working. And so this really created a huge mess. So thank goodness that problem is fixed now. It's hooked up to the big system and I don't have that problem anymore. But this was definitely something to have to deal with. Okay, so the table is flattened on both sides now. What I'm gonna do is I am going to put C-channel. I mean, it probably doesn't need it. It's gonna be like 2.5, just under 2.5 inches thick. So it should be just fine. But in any case, I'm gonna go ahead and put C-channel in it. But what I'm gonna do, since I've got CNC, it's pretty close to its final dimension, close enough to where I feel comfortable going ahead and letting the CNC cut my place for my C-channel. Not a big deal. Took me a couple of minutes to throw program together. I'm just gonna cut that out real quick. That way I'm done with that part on the bottom. I still have to get the base over here and center it up and get it marked out, but I'm not gonna do that until I am down to completely final size. These don't matter that big a deal if they're off one way or the other. It's not that big of a deal. The base, however, is. So let's go ahead and cut these out. CNC is finished. Let's get these in here. Perfect. Flush with this. I just need to get a brad point bit and mark my locations, drill my holes for my threaded inserts, and it'll be good. All right, I'm just gonna mark the locations for these holes. All right, I got all the threaded inserts in. I forgot to hit the record button, but I ended up having to use a little trick and heating up the epoxy because I had to drill into the epoxy. Heated up the epoxy to allow it to get a little soft to let the threaded insert seat in there. So all good. All right. On to the next. Now, unfortunately, I'm not gonna have the benefit of dust collection because this bit's too big. I love epoxy, but man, does it make a mess. So the way this is made here, and I didn't film the CNC into this at all, I honestly forgot, but the way this table base is made, it made a lot more sense for me just to do the wide area where the base sits, just because of the design of the base, rather than just individual plates. But I did drill far enough down where each of the screw holes, so I can go ahead and drill these the rest of the way out to the correct depth and put our threaded inserts in. Let me invite you to join me over on Sawdust Startups. This is a community dedicated to getting you your first sales, getting you to start up your business and making it successful. We give you tons of tools to do that. You just have to implement them. We have a classroom that has all kinds of different things, curriculum, build plans, social media stuff, the foundations, all the way up through scaling. There is so much here involved. We have a group call every Tuesday afternoon where we get on, myself, Matt Outlaw, and Nick, and we talk and answer questions and try to present, something to you every week. The community here, there is tons of people in the community, over 500 members now, and all of them willing to help. A lot of like-minded people in one place. There is just so much to tell you that I can't even do right here. So come on over. We're doing a 7-day free trial. You can come in, check it out, and see what you think. There's just tons there to do. I hope I can see you over there. I'll leave a link in the description. See you soon. Now, working with big slabs and epoxy, one of the most time-consuming things that you're ever going to do is sand. I don't know exactly how many hours I had into sanding this project, but it was a lot. I sanded everything up to 220 grit, and I used Rubio Monocoat. I know shouldn't go over 180, but hey, it's okay. And then I came back and taped off the live edge, ended up sanding the epoxy up to 5,000 grit. My original plan was actually going to be to polish this epoxy out, but it actually wound up being too shiny. And I know the gentleman that I'm making this table for, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit, and I just really felt like that wasn't going to do it for them. So I wound up going back and sanding again up to 3,000 grit and leaving it with kind of like a matte finish. And here's one of my favorite parts. All right, this is probably my favorite part. We got it wet sanded up to, I went to 2,000 grit because it started looking really good. I was gonna polish it, but I decided not to because I don't think it's going to be necessary with this. But anyway, so let's put some finish on it. This is Oregon black walnut. I got it from Adobe Walnut, and it is some of the most beautiful wood you'll ever see. We're just gonna put our white pad on our sander and turn it down. So what started out as a problem ended up becoming one of my favorite parts of the table. And honestly, I think that's so true for people too. The things we try hardest to hide are usually the things that shaped us. So don't be afraid to repair something. Don't be afraid to make a repair visible. Sometimes that's what makes it beautiful. Thanks for watching.